Today on Tricro Studios, we do a high-gain amp shootout between the Marshall JVM 410H and an early 90s, so an EL34 version, I think it's a 91, Marshall JCM 900 4100, so the 100-watt high-gain dual reverb, so the one that everyone hates because of all the diode clipping for the gain. I would like to reiterate here that this is just a high gain amp shootout. That's why it's titled is so. So you're not going to hear any cleans, you're not going to hear any breakups or anything like that. This is just high gain geared towards metal. I'd also like to point out that the Marshall JCM 900 is boosted with an Ibanez TS9. You don't have to boost a JVM 410H, so it's not boosted. But I do have two sound samples for you today, the first of which is a somewhat balanced EQ setting in drop C, whereas the second one is a little more on the scoot side, and that's in drop B. Alright, so there you go. There are the two sound samples for the high gain amp shootout between the Marshall JVM 410H and the Marshall JCM 900 4100. Again, this is an early 90s, it's like a 91, I believe. With EL34s, the 100 watt high gain dual reverb, so the one that everybody hates because of all the diode clipping. They say it sounds solid state. A lot of the hate for the JCM 900 4100 is usually from two groups of people. The first of which is usually those who have not played the JCM 900, and you get street cred, just so you know, when you like a JCM 800 and not a JCM 900 because of all the diode clipping. Sounds solid state, guys. But a lot of people who say that have never played a JCM 800 or a JCM 900. And the other group of people, usually, if they've played the JCM 900, it's like at a bedroom level. And at that point, just like any other tube amp, if your volume goes down, your EQ has to compensate by coming up. And that does not always translate into a great sound. It doesn't mean you can't or shouldn't use these in a bedroom setting. However, that's just a fact. Your EQ starts to liven up when you raise the volume. But hey, I'll throw in my street cred here. I own a JCM 800. I love that amp. However, it's not my favorite for high gain, unless it's paired with an actual high gain amp and it's being boosted. But it is at this point in the video where I like to go over what I've gained from doing a shootout like this. And it is kind of what I expected, probably because I've owned both of these amps for quite a few years now. So the JVM 410H has a lot more gain built in. As well, there's a lot of focus on low end and low mids here. It is also a noisy amp because of all the gain and everything, so make sure you have a good noise gate. But a lot of people, when they think of Marshall amps, they don't actually think of low end. It's usually like mids to high mids is where the focus is for Marshall amps. So the fact that this has so much gain and so much focus on low end and low mids, I find kind of really gives it an edge when it comes to like more modern metal type tones. Also have to note that the JCM 2000 series did a really good job at rectifying that as well, especially with their deep switches and such. And the JCM 900, if you're playing this amp boosted with the volume sitting around like 230, so like that, I'm not saying like 2.5, I'm saying 230. So rather high. Have it in another room. It's a good idea. It's what I like to do. I like to save my hearing. But at that point, you're going to actually get a lot of focus on your high mids and your high end in comparison to the JVM 410H. So that's what I thought I would hear. A lot more gain on the JVM 410H, a little less gain, but a lot more focus on the high mids and the high end. And back to the JVM 410H, a lot more focus on the low end and the low mids. But of course, these are just the settings that I went with, which I thought I was connecting with when I was recording. Thought it gave me a lot of energy and such. So needless to say, the JVM 410H has a ton of different modes to them. I'm partially colorblind, so I really could not tell you what mode I was on here. I tend to gravitate towards OD1 rather than OD2, and I think it's like the mode 1 or whatever. Because when you go to the next mode, there's increased gain, and the low end isn't as focused, and the high end is a little too shrill. And then the mode after that has less gain and would probably benefit from a TS9. So I do tend to gravitate to OD1 in whatever mode that is. I think it's just mode 1. Maybe orange, maybe green, red, can't tell. Point being, the JVM 410H, I understand. If you own a JVM 410H and you want to say you can get different sounds, you're correct. But that's really all I have to say here. I consider myself very lucky to own both amps. There is a very big benefit to owning both of these amps. You can't necessarily completely match both of these with all the different settings. So I do find that there is a big benefit to owning a JVM 410H, a JCM 800, and a JCM 900, especially in a studio setting like this. Just the different tonal options and the different values that you get from your low end, your low mids, and your high mids, and just the 800 with the mids being perfect. So yeah, I consider myself very lucky for both of these amps and all the gear that I do own. Thanks for watching.